Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you probably know that this is my fourth video with this beautiful tarot deck. The Light and Shadow, no, the Tarot of Light and the Light and Shadow Tarot. The Light and Shadow Tarot. Fascinating deck. Interesting to use, and when I come back with the next video after Christmas, it will be the deep dive into this deck where we talk about cardstock, cards I liked, I disliked, the guidebook presentation, the whole package, yes? But right now we've got the fourth spread with this deck, and we've got the spread that I developed for this deck. And I'm all ready to dive into that with you, but before we get there, I'd like to say a couple of things. One, I've got a poll in the community tab for this channel that will allow you to tell me what you would like to see in the coming future for the channel. I had one idea where I would do a series of how I associate astrology, the Hebrew letters with tarot. And I am recreating a system that is more comfortable for me, that is more in alignment with pre-Golden Dawn recalculations, shall I say. Yes? And so if you want to see that, you can click on that voting tab in the community tab on the channel. Other ideas I had were to just continue doing what I'm doing, just pick a deck, work with it for 4 weeks and do a deck dive into that. I had another idea of spending a year with the Minchiate, or I'm open to your suggestions. Is there something you'd like to see? Is there something you'd like to see more of? Do you want to see more Tarot de Marseille here? Do you want to see more Thoth here? What do you want? Yeah? What do you want? Tell me, what do you want? So I'm ready to hear from you. And there's at least one vote already, but we could use more. So go check that out. The second thing I'd like to do is say thank you. Thank you for doing all of those things you do. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up button. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for all of that, for commenting in the comment section. All of those things that you do help other people find us, and you are a blessing. And thank you for being the blessing that you are. Thank you. So, friends, we've got this wonderful deck and an interesting spread. What I will do is I will show you the spread. Then I will show you the cards in that spread. Then we will dive into reading it together. Are you all ready? Friends, here we go. Here is this Hermit spread that I developed for this deck. Friends, you just saw the blank template spread that I developed. And in case you're curious, maybe you missed it, or maybe you forgot, or maybe you're just curious, the way I developed this spread was I asked the deck what kind of spread it would like me to use for it. A little bit like an interview, but not exactly. And the card that came out was the Hierophant. No, the Hermit. I'm sorry, the Hermit. Hierophant is in this week's spread. But the card that came out was the Hermit. And so I thought, okay, so we want to do a spread based on the Hermit. And the Hermit's number 9, so I thought, okay, let's do a 9-card spread. And so what are the major elements in the Hierophant? And you saw, starting on the left, there are 3 cards, right, to represent the Hierophant, and 3 aspects, yeah? The body was the first card below, yeah? The second card on the very top was the mind, and then the third card is the heart or spirit, right? So, and what do we normally see in a Hierophant card, whether it's Smith-Waite or it's the Harris-Crowley deck? the Hierophant is almost always holding a light, right? Even in Tarot de Marseille, generally, mostly, the Hierophant is holding a light. So those next two cards are, what does the light reveal? Yes? And then the next two cards, well, if we've got light, the light is revealing things, and then there are things that are still in the shadows. So the next two cards tell us what is in the shadows. And that could be something scary lurking there, but it could also be something very positive, something that we haven't placed our attention on yet, or something that has not revealed itself for us yet, or something that we're ignoring temporarily or for a long time. Yeah, there are many ways of understanding the shadow. Yeah, and some people dive right into the scary, nasty stuff that we don't want to look at. Valid. But there are other ways of understanding the shadow that do not discount that, but include that, and the wonderful things that are also lying in the shadow that we have not explored yet, or that we have forgotten about, or that we have set aside for a later date. Yes? So there's some scary stuff, and there's a lot of good stuff out there as well. The next two cards are the divine message. You know, I could have just called them advice, but I really like the idea of the Hermit is out there doing the work of exploring our connection to the divine, to our eternal natures, whatever you want to name that. And names are not that important. Yes, we could call that divine nature God. We could call that divine nature Allah or Elohim, or the unpronounceable name of the Tentagram, or we could call it Brahman, or we could call it the Gaia, Great Mother, higher self, the universe, eternal nature, whatever. Yes? So, you could call it Papa or Mama if you wanted to. But we all, I think, can appreciate what those words are pointing towards. The conscious divine essence from which this universe has emerged. Yes? So, that divine consciousness is, I want to say everywhere, but that doesn't even, there's no way to describe it, yes? Because everywhere limits the divine more than the full extent of what the divine is. So, when we say that the divine is in communication with us at all times, it creates a gap, a space, I think. But words are awkward and insufficient when talking about these kinds of things, so let's just use the word communication. And yes, the divine is in eternal, constant communication with us because there is no separation. And so, the divine, through this spread, is lending its voice with some information. And that's what those last two cards are. Does that make sense? So, friends, this spread, you saw, we had some interesting cards here. And I'm going to be reading some of these cards in the way that I have developed for myself, and some of them I'm going to be reading the way that they are printed, because some of them have astrological associations on the cards themselves. Yes? So when they're printed on the cards, I'm going to read the cards as they are. When they're not printed on the cards, I'm going to read the cards as I want to read the cards. Yes? Does that make sense? So we have a little bit of a mesh or melding here. And you saw on the left-hand side, from top to bottom, we had the Hierophant, the Seven of Pentacles, and the Eight of Swords. Yes? Now, the order I laid them was Eight of Swords, Hierophant, and Seven of Pentacles. But we're going to start off with the mind, down at the base with the Eight of Swords. And when we think of the Eight of Swords, here it is, by the way, we think in the Smith-Waite tradition of our thoughts binding us, and it's our thoughts that are binding us. We're not bound by some external agent trying to trap us or keep us prisoner, though there are circumstances when that is a possibility. However, in this card, we see that we are self-bound. Yes? In the thought system, it's different. The representation that we have here is very much a Smith-Waite representation, right? We got the swords around the female-looking figure. She is bound and blindfolded. But we can see a potential path out if you just get it together, yes? We can also see that we have Jupiter in Pisces. I'm sorry, not Pisces, in Gemini. Jupiter in Gemini. Do you see that? Above her head, there's the glyph or the symbol for Jupiter, and below, or at her feet, I should say, we have the glyph or symbol for Gemini. Now, when we have Jupiter in Gemini, that doesn't actually fit my way of reading the way I want astrology to match the cards, but interestingly, Jupiter is in its detriment in Gemini. So that does make a kind of sense for me astrologically. So here we have Jupiter in its detriment in this card. And that kind of makes sense with the way that the image is drawn, because Jupiter, if she were an aspect of Jupiter, Jupiter does not look all that happy, bound up and in the middle of all of these thoughts. When Jupiter really likes to swim in the waters of Pisces and likes to race forward with the fiery energy of Sagittarius. Here, Jupiter is constricted in this Gemini house. Yes? And when people do have Jupiter in Gemini, what kind of people are we talking about? We're talking about people who are a little bit rigid, maybe, but curious. Yeah, Gemini's curiosity does penetrate when Jupiter is there. Remember, Jupiter expands qualities of the sign, right? So Gemini is this sign of dualities, maybe of, and what originally, its natural planet, Mercury is domiciled within Gemini. So there's that speed, that quickness of thought, of bouncing between ideas, and also communicating, yes? So Jupiter gets in there and wants to expand that, and that gets a little bit confusing, right? But there is curiosity, there is expansion of communication, and Jupiter and Mercury, they are pairs the way that Venus and Mars are pairs, yeah? They can live in each other's houses, but they are restricted there. The gathering and sharing of knowledge is possible when people have Jupiter in Gemini. Ideas and information are very important. But again, Jupiter likes to expand, and these thoughts are constricting Jupiter's desire for growth and wealth and luck and fire and emotion. Yeah? So we're here in the body. We are embodying this Eight of Swords, which is not necessarily a happy thing. We can look to the possibilities of embodying our communicative selves. Yeah, of incarnating our curiosity, our ability to talk, to gain knowledge, to investigate things. And we want to be cautious of the things that this card also points to, which are negative thoughts, self-imposed restrictions, our own limiting beliefs, feelings of imprisonment and victimhood, being self-captive. We don't want to bind ourselves up with our negative ideas and our negative thoughts and our limiting beliefs. We don't want to do that. Jupiter here wants to expand, but we have a very strong potential to not allow that to happen. Does that make sense? And the book for this deck does point towards those general ideas as well. Some parts of the book point more towards Thoth. Some parts of the book point more towards Smith-Waite, and this is one of those pretty much Smith-Waite aligned cards. Yeah? And you can see it right there in the picture. So that's where we begin. We begin with embodying our curiosity, communication. We want to talk, we want to communicate, we want to investigate, we want to allow our curiosity to move us, and we want to be cautious of our negative thoughts and limiting beliefs that could restrict us at the same time. Yes? Have you ever felt like that? Restricted? You feel that itch of curiosity, but I can't do that. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't have the brain to be able to manage figuring these things out. Those kinds of thoughts. Ever have those kinds of thoughts? If you have, welcome to the club. And so this is a time when we want to be aware of them and maybe allow them to pass. Just like we would be able to train ourselves to do if we did some meditation. Yes? We don't have to believe our thoughts. And that's what I think one of the things we're pointing towards, and maybe that's going to be part of the title of this video. I haven't figured out what to name this video yet. We'll discover that as we read this spread together. So we move from the body up to the mind. And here we have a very, very interesting card, the Hierophant. Now, if you look at this card, let me get it for myself. If you look at this card does not look like the Hierophant or the Pope from Tarot de Marseille or the Smith-Waite deck. This Hierophant reminds me a lot of the Harris Crowley Hierophant. Yeah, you see the two elephants behind the large figure, the large male Pope-like figure. That's totally Harris Crowley. Yeah? Do you see the pentacle there on the chest of the Hierophant? And it might be difficult for you to see, but there is in black a small figure within that star. Which, if you study this Harris Crowley deck, if you study the Thoth, you will know that that is an incarnation of Horus. And the Hierophant in this Harris Crowley deck is very different from the Hierophant in the Smith-Waite or the Tarot de Marseille traditions to me. The Hierophant in this Harris Crowley is more of the avant-garde moving forward of new beliefs, leaving behind old belief systems and entering a new era. Interestingly, the book for this card, while the art really does point Thoth to me, is totally Smith-Waite. So take that as you may. I don't know if you also noticed this, but if you look at the lower right-hand corner, you will see, right-hand corner, you will see a pentacle. In the lower left-hand corner, on an angle, you'll see a little bitty cup. In the upper left-hand corner, you will see a wand. And in the upper right-hand corner, you will see a sword. Do you see those? So, according to the book, we've got all of the elements here to support the spiritual action of this Hierophant. We also have a little lily and a little rose, which echoes back towards the magician, if that means anything to you. So we've got the purity of the lily and the passion of the rose, all here in this card, which is really interesting. It makes this image very rich and very dynamic and very Not well, to me, not well unpacked in the book. Just saying. So, we've got all this. This Hierophant has all of this stuff. We've got the longevity of tradition echoed by the elephants in the back, the memory, right? We've got the bull of the era. And for me, the way I'm associating the Hebrew letters, the runes to the tarot, the Hierophant for me is Aries. You might be saying, what the fuck? What the actual F are you talking about? Aries, that makes no sense. If you want to know why it makes sense to me, click the little box. Click the do a series on your revised system on the poll in the community tab. But for me, the Hierophant is Aries, which is the domicile of Mars. So we've got cardinal fires, vital attributes entering our spread right here. Now, interestingly, why is this a good match, I think, for the Hierophant? Well, that also gives us the Hebrew letter He. The Hebrew letter He, Yod He Vav He, the unpronounceable name of the divine. Yeah, He is the feminine, receptive letter of the four, and it's doubled. Yes, the first He is very, very feminine. The second He is actually a little bit androgynous according to some traditions. So, if we've got the androgynous He here, that kind of works with the Hierophant. Yes? What is the letter He? The He points towards the Hebrew month Nisan, I think it's Nisan, which is what? That is the astrological period for Easter, Passover, and the Paschal Lamb. Yes? So, Aries is not associated with this big, buff, robust ram that we usually think of. In the Hebrew astrological associations, Aries is a lamb. It is the sacrificial lamb, making us think also of things like Easter and Christ, and also Passover and the blood of the lamb for protection. Yes? So, the Hebrew letter, astrologically, in Hebrew astrology, is the Paschal Lamb. It's the fire of sacrifice. And it's offered for protection. Yes? It's new beginnings. It's the beginning of the astrological year, even for the Hebrews, as I understand it. I may be wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. If you are an ancient Hebrew astrologer, let me know in the comments below. I really want to learn. What I've learned so far is that it still matches the beginning of a new astrological year. There's a pioneering energy there too. And there is leadership in Hebrew astrology as well. The letter He is the creative feminine. Yes? Taking or giving of self. Revealing. It's the breath of life even. All interesting for the Hierophant, yes? Now if we match up the rune from the Futhark for Northern Europeans, yeah? The rune would be Raido, which kind of looks like an R. Yeah? And Raido is the new way in life, new perspectives, which matches up very nicely with the Thoth version of the Hierophant. It's rhythms and cycles. It's communication. Remember, Jupiter in Gemini was about expanded communication, so that's echoed here as well. And reconciliations. So our minds, we want to start off our minds with the ability to sacrifice for the good of self and all. Yes? New beginnings, getting ready for the new thing. That's where we want our minds to be pointed towards. And remember the curiosity of Jupiter and Gemini. Cycles. We know that cycles are in our lives, and could be beginning a new cycle here. What kind of cycle? Now, the Hierophant is still spiritual wisdom, right? The Hierophant is still traditions and religious beliefs, but even those go through cycles. Even our own personal beliefs go through cycles. My religious belief as a 5-year-old is not the same as my religious belief now as an adult, as a 60-year-old adult. And my religious belief as a 30-year-old adult is not the same as it is now as a 60-year-old adult. And if you've lived some time on this planet as eternal beings having these human experiences in this wonderful physical universe, you will probably recognize that your beliefs have changed and evolved and gone through cycles. So we want to prepare ourselves for a new cycle here, mentally. Maybe some conversion. We want to prepare ourselves for our own conversion into something. I'm not talking the kind of conversion you think of when people are becoming a new religion. But there's another way of understanding conversion, of reconfirming yourself or confirming yourself to a new or expanded understanding of your relationship with the eternal nature that you are, in relationship to the divine, in relationship to humanity, even. And this is wonderful, considering that we're about to enter a new year, right? On the solar calendar, not in the zodiacal calendar. That's still a ways off. But it's coming, and maybe that will be an even stronger emphasis of a new cycle beginning. I've heard some things about 2026 being the beginning of a new cycle. I don't know. I don't know if I really believe it, but there are those things floating in the information ethers. Yeah? So instead of conventionalism and institutionalism in the Hierophant, I think we're pointing more towards the Aries and Martian, balanced by the He of the creative feminine with the Hebrew letter, and the cycles of Raido here. Yes? So that's where our mind can be if we want to live our lives intentionally in the coming week as we begin the journey into a new year. And so what's going to be here in the heart, in the spirit? We have here the Seven of Pentacles, yes? What is that? Well, you can see here we've got Jupiter in Taurus, right? Which is wonderful, yeah? And let me get the card up here. This image looks very much like the Smith-Waite card, although instead of the 7 pentacles being very pentacle-like, we have these 7... So even the book acknowledges that these could be pods or they could be human heads. Do they look like human heads to you? There's one above and to the left of the guy leaning on looks like a shovel, maybe, yeah? And there are 6 others on the other side of him. Do they look like the tops of human heads to you? They look like that to me. And the book describes that as a possible way of understanding this image. A little bit creepy, but very Smith-Waite, yeah? We've got, again, you see Taurus down there where the shovel would be, I guess. And above the guy's head, there is a Saturn, right? And what does that mean to me? That means that we have the Capricorn decade of Taurus, which means that we've got the cardinal aspect of fixed Earth's vital energies entering this spread. The cardinal aspect, cardinal Earth, Capricorn, entering fixed Taurus. So we've got the third decanate, which means we've got an exaltation. And the exaltation of Venus, who is normally domiciled in Taurus, the exaltation of Venus is Venus in Pisces. So we've got some Piscean attributes. Venus in Pisces, spirituality, loving, feeling the feels of spirituality and communication and community and all of that wonderful stuff, yeah, is part of this in the heart, because here we are in the heart, in the spirit, with this card. But Saturn, when Saturn enters Taurus, what do we get? We've got the boundaries, the rules, the limits of Saturn constraining fixed Taurus's experience of the world a little bit. And we still have the echoes of Venus here, which is a very heart-centered planet. I mean, if we place Venus, we probably place Venus in a lower chakra, but still there's that heart quality of Venus as well, right? So what is the Seven of Pentacles telling us? Well, with Saturn in Taurus, we get people who are ambitious, organized. Yeah, Saturn likes to organize things as well. And they're slightly aggressive, more aggressive than a Tauran, who might be more reticent rather than aggressive. Yeah, carrying Capricorn's qualities into Taurus. They have a mastery, masterdom even. Yes, they're stubborn. And they have a stubborn dedication to advancement rather than a stubborn dedication to themselves. Yeah, they're dedicated to, I'm going to get ahead, I'm going to get ahead, I'm going to get ahead. 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot. Yes? But they're generous. With their love, they're generous with money. They could be a little patronizing, yeah? They could be a little bit, I give this to you because I know that you have not. Yeah, which is a little patronizing. It could go there, but you don't have to go there. And the Venus in Pisces, again, brings the romantic, compassionate, artistic, and spiritual aspects to these qualities of moving ahead with rules and restrictions and constrictions and organization and a little bit of aggression. Yeah, but it's softened with Venus, right, in Pisces. So this gives us what? We've got long-term views here. Now we know that we're not going to get there, so we'll advance with our mastery, with maybe a little bit of stubborn movement, yeah? We will persevere. We will watch the growth of what we have planted. There might be some investments that develop for us that grow. Yeah. We will be responsible. We will tend to our plants. Yes. And it's interesting that the book leans a little bit into the Thoth understanding of this card, which is a more negative. Yeah, setbacks, worries, loss is what the book gives us. So if we experience that, that could be part of it. But I don't see that with this being an upright card, being Saturn in Taurus, being Venus in Pisces as an exaltation. I don't see setbacks, loss, and worries. I see the movement forward with determination, with a little bit of stubbornness, maybe. So that's what we get for ourselves here. Yeah? We incarnate the Eight of Swords. Our minds are pointed towards the Hierophant of what? Of creativity, of sacrificing of self for protection and for others, of new cycles, beginnings of new cycles in our spiritual, traditional, even religious, if that's part of your experience, understandings of us, ourselves in the world. Wisdom, yes? And then here in our hearts, have the heart of ambition, of moving forward. I'm going to move forward. In the coming year, I'm going to move forward. I will be generous. I will share my love. I will love myself as a spiritual being having this experience, and I will love the spirituality of this physical experience. And I'm going to be careful of things. I'm going to be careful of negative thoughts and my own limiting beliefs that I might have embodied here. Right? I'm going to be careful of being too retrograde, not retrospective, but of being resistant. Yes, and I'm going to be careful of being focused on things that might appear to be setbacks or worries or loss. Because there might be some letting go of things that is going to be asked of us as we move into the new. Yes? So, we've got two cards for what the light is revealing for us here and now. And those two cards were the Queen of Wands and the Two of Swords. Yeah? And here's the Queen of Wands. We'll start with her. She is gorgeous, right? Do you see that her wand kind of looks like a huge match, right? There's this big flame that is burning at the tip of her wand. Lovely. When we see the King of Wands, we'll see a similar quality to his wand, although much smaller, which is interesting. Because you would think the King, Fire of Fire, would have this huge wand, but the King of Wands has a little bitty fire in this deck. Queen of Wands, huge, yes? And we've got this wonderful, looks like I don't think it's maybe a leopard at her feet. Although for me, the Queen of Wands the queens are cardinal, the kings are fixed, and the knights are mutable for reasons of my own. Yeah, for reasons that I think that those match the qualities of the cards in the tarot. So for me, the queens are cardinal, so she is cardinal fire, so she is Aries. Ha! We got Aries again, yes? We had Aries for the Hierophant, we got Aries for the Queen of Wands. I didn't just make this up for this because of this spread. That's my own associations long before we laid these cards. So here she is, Aries. Beautiful woman, beautiful cat at her feet, sunflower behind her. Her head is bursting like the sunflower. Very indigenous looking design on her clothes. And that indigenous could be anywhere in the world. It could be indigenous Balkan. It could be indigenous American. It could be indigenous Asian somewhere, right? But there's this indigenous kind of old, traditional pattern to the collar of her robes, yes? Which I love. I just love that. Anywho, so who is the Queen of Wands for me? She is courage. She is confidence. She is creativity. She's independence. She's sexuality. She's self-assured and she's determined and she's down to earth. Okay, so she has the potential to be a little bit of a social butterfly because she likes a lot of experiences. But But she has this soulful fire of what? Yeah, she's water of fire, right? Fire of wands, water of queens. She's water of fire, and she has this down to earth quality to her. Yes? She could be a witch. Maybe we could be embodying our witchy selves. But, and witchy selves, of course, being a positive thing, not a negative one. Yes? So, what does the light reveal? The light reveals our Aries selves, echoing the Hierophant, with passion, with courage, with independence, doing our own selves, living our best lives, as they say. Yes? Self-assured, ready for the new cycle, and determined to move forward, like the 3 cards for body, mind, heart. Those 3 cards were telling us. Those 3 cards might be summed up with this one card, yeah? Which is wonderful. And below her, however, we have a little bit of an uncomfortable card, which is the 2 of Swords. And this 2 of Swords is very much like the Smith-Waite 2 of Swords, but the book, however, points more towards the Thoth system than the Smith-Waite system, if you ask me. We'll get there. You can see on the cube that the figure is sitting on, with this very interesting laurel wreath on their head, holding the 2 swords crossways, not across the chest, instead across the crown of the head, across the crown chakra, maybe. We got the moon at the very top, but we also see in the box that this figure is sitting on, we have the moon in Libra. Yes? Now, for me, the moon in Libra is not a natural association. Yeah? It's not one of the triplicities. It's not an exaltation. It's not a fall. It's not a detriment. It's not a compliment. It just, okay. But people have their moons in Libra all the time. So, what does a person who has their moon in Libra indicate? Or what qualities do they have? Well, they are emotional. Their emotional needs are balanced, are focused on balance. Yeah? They have the strong desire for balanced emotions, for harmony, for fairness and connection with other people. Very Libran things, right? They seek nice surroundings, comfortable surroundings, pleasant surroundings. They look for intellectual engagement and partnership. Libran things. They want to feel secure. And they're diplomatic peacemakers, which is interesting because and I'm pulling from my memory right now, the Thoth deck calls this one peace. I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. I didn't think to go check that before doing this video, but I think the Thoth deck calls this peace. So while the Smith-Waite deck points towards things like difficult choices and weighing up options and coming a catch-22, maybe an impasse of some sort, stalemates, right? Or maybe avoiding choices. The Thoth deck and the book point towards peace. Reconciling opposing forces by a calm and balanced mind. So we do get that idea of opposition in the Thoth deck as well, but it's the reconciliation of those things, whereas the Smith-Waite really points towards the problematic aspects of this card. Yeah? So because this is underneath and supporting and in the light, I think we want to point towards those things of emotional balance, communication, the Queen of Wands being supported by intellectual engagement with other people and emotional engagement and partnership with other people, with having peace as much as possible in comfortable surroundings. And when things are contradictory, first working to find our mental, emotional balance, and then finding the meeting point, finding that Vesca Pisces between those two opposing circles. Yeah? Where do those things meet? And that meeting place is probably the answer. And from that, we find our own way of courageously moving forward independently with self-assurance, as the Queen of Wands, as Aries, as with our... some people are fixated on the Martian, as in the warlike aspect of Mars, and that exists. But Mars is partnered with Venus, and a long, long time ago, Venus in her previous iterations, before she was Aphrodite, before she was Ishtar, was the war goddess. She had aspects of both what we would now consider Mars and Venus, and so Aries is not always war. Aries is exuberance. We consider it the more active exuberance of that pair. Yeah? Well, it could lead Mars into trouble, and then Mars wants to fight. Sure. But Mars doesn't always and only have to be about war and that kind of martial qualities. Yeah? So, those qualities, that active, excited, I'm the first one in the zodiac and I'm going to dart out of the gate with my passion and my creativity and my what is that called? My instincts to begin anew. Yes? Which we can do when we've got this foundation of the Two of Swords, of peace, curiosity, engagement with other people, not warlike. Yeah? Okay, so we move over to what's in the shadows. What's in the shadows? We've got these two phenomenal cards. We've got the King of Swords and the King of Wands. Two kings. So for me, the King of Swords is fire of air. King of Wands is fire of fire. We start off with the one on top, the King of Swords. For me, the King of Swords is Aquarius. Kings are fixed. Fixed air is Aquarius. And here we see what? We see a king on a horse with a scimitar over his head and a star on his chest, not a pentacle, but the six-pointed star. So there are the combinations of all of the elements right there. Fire, water, air, earth, right on his chest. Radiance behind this king, yes? Beautiful, beautiful card. What is Aquarius? Aquarius is the one who is progressive, looking forward to the new, but in a Saturnian way. And Saturnian people are organized, boundaries, right? Limits, rules. And those can be positive qualities as well. When we think of the King of Swords, we think of mental clarity. Yes? Intellectual power, very Aquarian. Authority, very Aquarian. Analytical minds, seeing the possibilities, seeing what we're moving towards, where we are going, that kind of progressive quality. Not let's get rid of everything from the old and dart off to the new. It's the seeing the trajectory of where we're going and the correct path forward in a very Saturnian way, if that makes sense. Do you know any Aquariuses who are like that? There's a little bit of sternness here. There's a little bit of gravity, gravitas, orderly, truthfulness. They're not exactly the most lovey-dovey of the zodiacal signs, right? But they want to be friendly. They want to have good relationships with other people. They're not loners, but more than their relationships with other people, more than social interactions, they are clear mentally. They are forward-thinking and forward-looking. Not destroying or getting rid of the past, but seeing the future. Yes? In a very kingly kind of way, or queenly kind of way, or non-binary, royal them kind of way. So we got the, what's a wonderful thing to, so what I see in the shadows is not the scary thing, but we have this potential. And maybe we can feel around in the shadow to find these qualities which could benefit us, I believe. And that King of Swords is supported by the King of Wands. So we had air of fire, we had fire of air in the King of Swords, supported by its very, very well, elementally well dignified fire of fire. King of Wands, Leo. I'm a Leo. Leo. And in this card, we've got a king on a horse. I don't really see what is on the king's breastplate, but there is something there. There are, interestingly, there are what looks like wings on the crown of the king. You see the wand in this king's hand? This king's wand is little itty bitty. Makes me think that this little itty bitty wand might... Anyways, let's not go there. I don't know if you can see this, but underneath the hooves of the horse, which looks a little bit fierce, right? Do you see the salamander in black and white? It might not be easy for you to see. It would be in the lower left-hand corner of the card. You can see one eye and half of another eye on this lizard face. Actually, how many lizards? Oh, I just saw another, lizard, what do we call them? What are they? The salamanders. Yeah, the salamander. There's a little salamander right beneath the bigger salamander, which I just noticed. Anyway, so we got the salamander for the King of Wands as well. We actually, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a fire glyph on the epaulette of the king's right hand shoulder. Yeah, do you see that? That's kind of cool. So Leo, what is Leo? Leo, they're natural born leaders, right? They have grand visions. They are looking for their long-term success. They can be authoritarian, they can be demanding, they can be noble, honest, they can be playful, we can be playful kittens, but these are common attributes of the King of Wands. And do you see how those line up so nicely with Leo? Just saying. Yeah, so for me, the King of Wands, fire of fire, sun in Leo, fixed fire's vital attributes, right underneath fixed air's vital attributes, entering our spread here and lying in the shadows for us to go and collect. And that would be very beneficial for us, I believe. We've got a lot of interesting support here from both Mars in Aries and Saturn in various aspects, right? We had Saturn in the Seven of Pentacles. We had Saturn just now in Aquarius. And then when we look at the divine message, the card on the top is Mars in Scorpio, but the one below is Mars in Libra yet again. I'm sorry, Mars in Libra. It was Mars in Taurus. I'm sorry. Erase. Yeah, okay, so yes, Mars in Scorpio at the top. Below, Saturn in Libra. Yes, Saturn in Libra for the Three of Swords. Right? We had Saturn in Taurus for the Seven of Pentacles. We have Saturn in Libra. So we've got Saturn running through this spread. Seven of Pentacles, King of Swords, Three of Swords. We've got Mars in two of its signs, right? Aries and Scorpio. Why Scorpio? Okay, so let's look at the Temperance card, right? Beautiful card. This card does not look like the art card at all from the Thoth deck, the Harris Crowley deck, at all. Very much Smith-Waite inspired. Although it looks like this Temperance figure is, we're seeing the backside of this Temperance figure. You see the buttocks there. Yeah, the feet are pointing the opposite direction, which is an interesting interpretation and it's just an interesting choice. But we do get the water going between the two cups. Yeah, we got these fascinating wings. We do get the fire glyph on the what would be the breastplate if this creature were facing us, but here it's the back plate where the wings are attached. Anyways, we still got that there. We got the lily off in the distance on one side. We got the crown on the other in the distance. So a lot of Smith-Waite imagery here. We got one foot on land, 1 foot in the water, just like the Smith-Waite deck and in some Terre de Marseille. Beautiful card. For me, Temperance is associated with Scorpio. And that comes through the Sefer Yetzirah, oldest traditions that I can find. Scorpio, which means that we've got Scorpio, which is the domicile of Mars, so we got fixed waters, vital attributes entering our reading here. Fixed water. And from Hebrew astrology, Scorpio is several things, very, very diverse. Yeah, there's a duality to Scorpio in the Hebrew tradition, from what I was able to research. Again, if you know better than me, if you're an ancient Hebrew astrology scholar, let me know in the comments below. The Hebrew astrology for Scorpio focuses on the sting and transformation. Wonderful. Yeah, the scorpion sting, but not the sting of death, but the sting of transformation. So bringing subconscious thoughts to unresolved issues in our lives. It is bringing things into conscious awareness, that kind of transformation, those things that we bring up, and I don't mean like vomiting, but things that we bring up from our unconscious that are transformative and change our lives and change our understanding. Yeah? Spiritual rebirths here. Very much a Scorpion aspect, right? Associated with the Great Flood and with duality, by the way. And the duality of things like coldness and passion are encompassed in Scorpio according to Hebrew astrology, and it very much echoes some aspects of Scorpio for modern astrologers as well, I believe. Now, we've also got the Hebrew letter of Nun, which is what? It's a serpent or a fish, very Scorpion symbols. Scorpio symbols, I'm sorry, not Scorpion, Scorpio symbols. Nun is also the faithful one. And carrying knowledge of the old world into the new after a devastation. So we've got the old knowledge, and then there's this devastation. But the Scorpio person is able to carry that knowledge into the new world. Echoing a lot that Hierophant card that we started off with the mind, right? So there's a little bit of there is a large echo between those two, which is interesting because we got Mars in both of those astrological signs, right? Aries for the Hierophant and Scorpio for Mars. I'm Scorpio for the Temperance. For Temperance. Both of them have Mars. Very interesting. The rune associated here is Perthro, which kind of looks like a dice cup on its side. And Perthro is a symbol for decisions, for mystery, for prophecy. A little bit of a Scorpion thing, I would guess. Also uncertainty, secrecy, but also the occult. Scorpios are really, really interested and at home in the occult, right? Initiations, occult skills, fertility, partnership is also possible for Perthro, but I think those mysteries, the prophecy, the occult skills are, I think, strong here in Temperance with Scorpio associated with it. So yes, balance is important. Balance of those opposites, coldness and passion, dualities, right? Moderation, patience, purpose. Purpose is more martial Scorpion, right? Forbearance, harmonizing. Now, interestingly, the book points towards things like the moderate middle, whereas the Thoth card points towards alchemy. That's why it's called the art card, right? Alchemy. You join those two things to create the third. The book is pointing towards the middle path of the two opposites, which is different. Very, very different, if you ask me. Middle paths, the moderate middle, is what the book is pointing towards. But for me, for us here in this spread, we're going to move more towards that patience, purpose, forbearance, and the occult aspects of Scorpio with Mars in it. The knowledge being carried forward, echoing the Hierophant card at the beginning of the spread for the mind. I'm sorry, my hands are kind of cold. It's cold in here. I didn't want to I turned off the heater because, well, it's loud. Yeah, so the divine message, I think, is to inhabit our harmonized, temperate Scorpio natures. We all have all of the zodiac within us. If you don't know that now. We all have all of the qualities. Some are more emphasized than others for us. For us in this coming week, and maybe as we enter the new year, our Scorpion selves and our Aries selves in collusion, in partnership, will be beneficial for us. And that temperance of that card 14 is supported by an interesting card here, which is the Three of Swords. And this Three of Swords is really, really, really Smith Waite. Yeah? Actually, there are echoes. The Harris Crowley Three of Swords echoes that a little bit. We have in this card Saturn in Libra, right? So we have the, what is it called? Aquarius decadent of Libra, which means we have fixed heirs vital, the fixed aspect of cardinal heirs vital attributes entering our spread here. Now, the fixed aspect of Cardinal Libra wanting to move forward, getting a mental start, and the fixed aspect of that. But because would be the second decadent, we have a complement, which is Venus again. Here we got Venus, instead of being in Pisces, we got Venus in Scorpio. Which is interesting, right? Because we just had Scorpio above. So here Venus in the Three of Swords is softening, maybe, is giving the Scorpio above a little bit more romance, a little bit more, a little softening, a little bit more magnetism of bringing other people in. Yeah? So when we think of Saturn in Libra, what do we think? We think good organization, the mental skills, not the mental organization rather than the physical organization of like a Virgo, yeah? And self-discipline, sure. We have ourselves controlled by reason more than passion. Understanding karmic law and justice, which seems really appropriate for the Three of Swords, right? Karma. Karma hurts sometimes, yeah? An aggressive mind, often progressive, bringing that Aquarian aspect to Libra. Scientific minds. But Venus in Scorpio here adds some intense passion to that, yes? And some magnetism, drawing other people into us. Some deep connections with Venus in Scorpio. Transformation as well, through our connections, through our passion, through our magnetism, through connection with our deepest natures. Well, remember, we were bringing stuff up from the unconscious, and here that strengthens the ideas of transformation with Venus in Scorpio as well. And loyalty. So we've got that here too. But why in such a sad-looking, painful-looking card? Because when we think of this image, we think of strife, we think of loss, we think of heartbreak, we think of emotional pain, we think of sorrow, grief, wounds, the wounded self, right? But remember, this is an air card, it's not an emotion card, right? This isn't the card for sadness and disappointment. This is the card for what do we learn from that, to me. This is the what do we learn. So, our temperance is supported by the things we can and have the potential to have learned or have learned from the emotional, psychological wounds that we've experienced in the recent or farther past. Yes? Does that make sense? So those, you see the tears that are raining down upon the heart. You see the blood that is being shed from that heart. All of those are fodder for our education, for our learning. Yes? And as we evolve to live our lives intentionally, which is what an intentional life is, it's a life of evolution, becoming the people we want to be, to have the experiences we want to have in this world. Yes? So this is a very expansive spread here. And what is this spread telling us? I see this spread telling us to live our lives more intentionally in the coming week and maybe on into the coming year. We are asked to prepare for transformation, to prepare for a transformation which is passionate, that brings our Aries personality attributes to the forefront, that is supported by our Scorpio attributes, also associated with Mars, to transform, to become, to move forward. That we have courage and confidence through the Queen of Wands as well. Supported by balancing, harmonizing tensions in our lives of apparently opposing aspects. But in the shadows, we have a power that is available to us, with the King of Swords and the King of Wands out there in the shadows, ready to be absorbed, ready to be accepted, to empower us. Yeah, the power of a clear, forward-seeing mind and a naturally born leader within ourselves, walking our own path, but also being able to guide others, to be playful at times, but also, and generous at times, but also having grand visions of where we can go and what we can become. And we've learned from the pain of the past, or we still can learn from the pain of the past, and use that, put that in the crucible to do the alchemical work of transforming it into the philosopher's stone, which could be a diamond of clarity and precision and precise transformation to become the new incarnation of ourselves. There's a lot of intensity here, a lot of passion, a lot of movement towards mastery, and a caution to get. Remember, we got those negative thoughts from the Eight of Swords as well. We want to make sure that we don't fall prey to our own limiting beliefs and negative thoughts. But the Eight of Swords also provides a blessing with Jupiter in Gemini of being curious, of communicating, of expanding our minds. As uncomfortable as that is going to feel, there's going to be the restrictions of being in a Mercurian house, which is smaller and a little bit more constrained than Jupiter is happy with. But we can do it, because Mercury is our partner of our Jupiter natures. It takes some finesse. It takes some, how do I do what I want to do in the environment of this house without falling prey to the negatives? Yeah? Just like Mars has to do when Mars enters a Venus domicile, or Venus has to do when Venus has to enter a Martian domicile. Right? We can do that. I think so. Don't you think so? If you do, let me know in the comments below. If you don't, let me know in the comments below. Let's talk. And again, reminder, go vote on that poll. I would appreciate that. I would appreciate that so, so much. Please. I want to know what you want. So, friends, thank you. Thank you, now and always. I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. And happy holidays with my love.